morning, and thank you for finding time to be with us today. It is Monday, the 28th of March, 2022. I trust that you had a wonderful weekend. I did. Good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuned in across the world. My name is Miriam Ogutu. The show is Good Morning Africa. We get to bring you the latest news. We start with Kenya, and then we shall move on to Africa and the rest of the world at the tail end of the show. A warm welcome to you. So before I bring in my panelists, I'll just take us through quickly the headlines this morning, and I will start with the Kenyan newspapers. The Daily Nation storm over Uhuru impeachment claims, outshining the master. The first law of power dictates that you should never try to outsmart your master. So did William Ruto go against the rule book. The president's shocking revelation on Saturday that his deputy wanted to wrest power from him was yesterday met with a mixture of distress and dismay, with the deputy president terming Kenyatta's allegations shameful and propagandist. The story is on page 4, and in a very short bit we shall get into the details of that story. A dead professor, his ex-wife, and a missing mistress. That is on page 25. And 2021 KCPE, Magoha set to release the KCPE exam results this week, and I think he said today. The story is on the back page of the Daily Nation. Man killed in grisly tragedy at steel plant. The story is on page 8. Drought wreaking havoc. That is on page 2 and 3. And Ruto's UDA wins big as Jubilee NC bleed. That is on page 5 on the Daily Nation. The Standard newspaper, Uhuru's last budget, Raila, Ruto, I share in the bulk of the next budget will be implemented by President Kenyatta's successor, and this has created ground for lobbying. Raila has pledged to continue Uhuru's legacy, but Ruto allies are pushing populist changes. That is on page 8. Magoha's all set to release KCPA results. That is on page 13. And controversial fuel levy nets 26 billion Kenya shillings. That is on page 26. So KRA is doing pretty much, even as Kenyans continue to suffer. First ever Lioness Rally thrills fans. That is on page 38 and 39. Impeach the president, not me, UDA boss. That is on page 7. Unclaimed assets rise to 54.9 billion Kenya shillings. The assets include 24 billion Kenya shillings cash whose owners cannot be traced. A big chunk of the money includes deposits in financial institutions. The story is on page 5 of the Standard newspaper. And ODM refunds fees as it doles out direct tickets. And party insists there will be no nominations in seats where the popular aspirant is already known through an opinion poll. Female MPs biggest winners. That is on page 6. And then we go on to page the Star newspaper, and the main headline on the Star newspaper this morning. DP Ruto to Uhuru, do not tell lies about me. President told Kikuyu elders his deputy hatched a plot to get him out of office. That is on page 2. Kenyatta's 7-point plan for Raila victory. That is on page 4 and 5. And Shokara's ODM refunds fee issues regret letters. That is on page 6. And still worker boiled to death in Thika factory. Even the thought of that is just making me feel the pain. Unfortunately, the story is on page 3. Invest in party dispute mechanisms. That is an opinion piece on page 16 on the Star newspaper. And then we shall move on to the other newspapers from across the region, and we look at one from Zimbabwe Newsday. Chamisa makes big poll statement. That is the main headline. And still from Zimbabwe, the Daily News, rocky road ahead for Zimbabwe opposition as ZANU-PF gains 2 MPs. CCC gets into parliament. And then the Punch from Nigeria, APC inaugurates appeal panel on Tuesday, and PDP says Adamu has fraud charges. And then the Guardian from Nigeria still, Wike to run for president, blames Atiku Saraki for PDP's 2015 defeat, and crowd theft killing Nigerians' oil businesses, operators lament. So that is what we have on the front page. And then we move on to the new vision from Uganda. Civil servants to get 400 billion Uganda shillings raise Okay, that sounds like a lot of money. And then you pause and, you have to think how much will translate from Ugandan shillings. So 400 billion Ugandan shillings. And then date set for return of Olanyo's body. That is on page 4 and 5. Please, I would ask for you, Paul, to mute your device before we start the conversation. And then Daily Monitor, still from Uganda. Of course, date set for a return of Olunya's body. That is the Parliament Speaker, the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, who died in Seattle in the US, and his body is said to be brought back home. And then the Citizen from Tanzania moves to shield itself from Ukraine's war fallout. That is the main headline. And the Daily News, still from Tanzania. Let me just get that. It says that Samia drives.
I'm fine.
Paul.
Could you mute? I'm working.
Please mute, but when you're not talking, we apologize. Please make sure you mute your device. Thank you so much. And then you can, when you're talking, then you can put, so that we don't interfere with the flow of the show. We apologize for that. But that is what we have on the leading newspapers here in Kenya, indeed, and from across the continent. So let me just bring in my panelists this morning. We are joined by Gladwell Kirago from Nairobi. She's a journalist. Gladwell, a very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Miriam. Good morning to my co-panelists, and good morning to our viewers.
All right. And we are also joined by Paul Onyango, also a resident here in Nairobi. He's been joining us from last week, and it has been an absolute pleasure to have him on the show. Paul Onyango, good morning. Okay. So, Paul. Okay. I don't know if, Paul, are you aware? All right. I don't know if he's able to hear me, but once Paul is able to hear us, I think he will come in. And then we do have Daniel Wesonga, our in-house analyst and Punchline Africa Television's correspondent from also here in Nairobi. Daniel, a very good morning to you.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu, at our headquarters in Nairobi. Good morning to my co-panelists, Gladwell Kirago and Paul Onyango, and our viewers here in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa, Africa, and the rest of the globe who are watching this particular morning. It is my pleasure to be on the panel this morning, Miriam.
Okay, thank you. And before we get onto this story that has left a lot of tongues wagging over what President Uhuru Kenyatta said when he was meeting the Kikuyu elders over the weekend, I believe. Let's look at this other story, I think on page 6 on the Star newspaper, and we get to hear what now ODM is doing and what you think about that. And ODM has embarked on refunding millions of nominations fees as it resorts to issuing direct tickets in select areas. In the last 1 week, the party issued direct certificates in at least 10 electoral areas, including 3 gubernatorial positions and 4 parliamentary seats. The Star established that the party is employing a combination of methods, including opinion polls, ratings, and consensus to arrive at the most popular candidate for the ticket to guard against any drop in the number of its female elected MPs. The party is also said to be considering issuing direct nominations to all single constituency women MPs defending their seats. Some of the ODM elected women MPs include Mishimbo Likoni, Emilio Odhiambo, Suba North, Eve Obara, Kabondo Kasipul, and Lillian Gogo Rangwe. Where a decision has been made to hand out direct tickets, ODM is refunding nomination fees to the unsuccessful aspirants. The party also writes a letter of regret to all unsuccessful applications and provides reasons for issuing the direct ticket. Well, this, I think, is the first, what ODM is doing, refunding back money to aspirants who perhaps wanted to vie for these positions, and in these areas ODM has decided to give a direct tickets. But well, that is commendable. I think it's the first. I've not heard it again before. But what will this do to democracy? Is this good for democracy? I'll start with you, Gladwell. The direct handing over of tickets to aspirants. Gladwell. All right, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And of course, when we look at it, we have two types of democracy. We have direct democracy and indirect democracy. The direct democracy is where you can go to the ballot and be able to elect a representative that you want to have to represent you. And indirect democracy is where we have someone else actually determine for you who you're gonna maybe be electing, or maybe who is gonna be representing you at a certain particular level of governance. So I believe whatever ODM has chosen is indirect democracy, where the party officials, or maybe the people that you elected to be at the helm of the leadership of the party, actually decide which aspirant is the best in your particular region. So to me, I don't look at it as a deviation from the principle of democracy, but rather as another form of democracy, which is acceptable. Remember, even acclamation is a kind of a democracy, Miriam, in some societies. So democracies are quite a vast, maybe term with a very, very vast also definition, depending on the scenario and which route it takes. So to me, I think these are very, very good idea, owing to the fact that going to these nominations at times, it has been maybe chaotic and maybe has brought a bad image to the party. Then it's much better if we can maybe use the direct nominations in areas where candidates are having a commanding lead, and actually save the resources and time to focus on areas where we have a steep competition in terms of the nominations. And therefore, it will actually even allow the party officials and the party organs more much time and resources to ensure that we have free, fair, and credible nominations in areas where the competition is going to be stiff between various aspirants.
Okay.
So to me, I think that is a noble idea. And if it could be applicable and it works quite well, then that could be something to borrow from in the future nominations and in the future elections, where when you find out that in a certain area we have a candidate who is actually commanding a lead as per has a commanding lead as per the opinion polls and also just the mood on the ground, then it is not quite good to subject them to nomination. Remember, people spend as much money in the nomination as they spend also in the general election. I have a friend, perhaps I know from Mumias, who spend a lot of money during nominations, knowing that once he clinches a certain party's certificate, that will be great for him, that he'll have already won the election, not knowing that we had another expenditure coming in after the nominations. So you realize that also taking these candidates to a nomination exercise, whereas they are actually clearly leading, it will actually mean that they spend more money during these nominations so that they win the certificate, and then again have to spend again twice, before now compete with other candidates from the other parties, which is a double expenditure for them. So if the party can actually reduce the expenditure by giving them a direct ticket, then it will have saved even money and time on their side, Miriam.
All right. But don't you think this has come late in the day? Because I'm sure a lot of these candidates have spent so much money trying to campaign and perhaps hoping they will clinch the ticket in that area. But also, of course, in this story, it will be perhaps a win for some women, and to guard against any drop in the number of its female elected members of parliament. The party is also said to be considering issuing direct nominations to all single constituencies, women MPs defending their seats. But here's the thing, as much as I understand, this might be good for for the party, and I think the explanation makes sense. But what about for the Kenyans? Who perhaps this woman representative was not serving them well, and they thought this will be a great time for us to get another aspirant, but through the ODM, and see if it will make a change. But if you insist that these aspirants, because they're women, and because maybe they're popular, and because maybe they're very, they're very active members in the ODM party, and decide their seats will not be contested, instead they'll just defend their seats in that regard. Where does this leave the electorate, Paul? Good morning.
Good morning to you, Miriam.
All right.
I'm quite late, and I did some disturbance. Sorry.
All right.
I didn't get to a point.
Sorry, the production is asking if you could just adjust your headroom so that your head is not cut off. Make sure you leave enough headroom there, if you can, please.
KCSE.
All right. Okay, it's a bit tight.
Yes.
That is better. So we were looking at the direct nominations that ODM now is seeking to give. And first, ODM is refunding nomination fees, issuing also regret letters to aspirants in specific constituencies that ODM is seeking to just hand over direct tickets. So I think that is a first. Also, ODM will be handing money back to aspirants who had given their monies for the nomination exercise in those specific areas where ODM will have a direct aspirant chosen, picked by the party. And of course, in some areas, they're saying to ensure that there's no drop in the number of its female elected members of parliament. The party is also said to be considering issuing direct nominations to all single constituency women MPs defending their seats. But here's the thing, maybe these women MPs were not doing their job as much, and the electorate was waiting for these elections to try and bring in another woman or another person to represent them. So if you give them direct ticket, and maybe they are not performing very well, but you've decided because of whatever other, parameters they're looking at as a party, you'll just hand over these ladies a direct ticket, women leaders. Where does this leave the electorate who perhaps was looking to have another member, but through ODM, and see if, they could bring the difference if at all these ones are not performing? Where does this leave us as voters?
Okay. I think the party ODM, they made a statement regarding how they are going to pick their candidates in various election seats and in various parts of the country. They made it very clear that they will do opinion polls. They contact a company. They even had announced those who are registered in the various seats, they submit their names. So when they made that decision that they will make their choices depending on the best polling candidate, or in cases whereby the candidates agree themselves that not everybody will go to the ballot. When there's that consensus among the candidates, the party had already said that they will make the best choice out of either through consensus or through polling. So
all right. As you deal with that, please settle down and try to deal with your surroundings. So once you're able to talk without interference, I'll come back to you. Right now, I'd like to go to Gladwell Kiragu. Gladwell, a very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you, Miriam.
All right. So I'm sure you've been listening to this conversation and these proposals by the ODM, and of course ODM returning these nomination fees to some of the aspirants there. But is this a raw deal to the electorate?
I don't think it is, because what they are doing, it is counting for popular candidates from other political parties to hand the direct tickets to get more seats in the coming election. And also, when they are doing so, it's only in areas with stiff competition and the aspirants fail to reach consensus to the party plans. And so I don't think it will be fair enough, because what happens to that aspirant, or maybe that MP women rep who's been there but has not been working for the county, or maybe for the area he or she is assigned to or was elected to? So I think they should do away with it and let everybody, like what the other parties are also doing, let them pay. We go to the nomination directly.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. So now let's just get into that conversation that has left a lot of Kenyans' tongues wagging since some pronouncements that were made during that meeting at, President Heard with the Kikuyu elders over the weekend. So let's see how the Daily Nation has captured this story on page 4. And we see what is really happening and what the Deputy President said about all of that. Deputy President William Ruto turned on the heat on the bare-knuckle succession race yesterday when he accused the President Kenyatta of peddling lies and propaganda about his alleged involvement in an impeachment plot. A furious DP reacted angrily to claims that he had plotted to oust his boss, saying the genesis of his falling out with the president was the handshake that accommodated former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. While meeting over 3,000 elders and leaders from Mount Kenya at State House, Nairobi on Saturday, President Kenyatta reportedly claimed that the DP had planned to impeach him, which forced him to work with Mr. Odinga. I'm not a fool, a drunkard, or a madman to help put together a government and then go behind it and plan to remove it. As the DP, I know what I must do, and I have never, and it has never happened that I will do anything to bring down our government, the DP told supporters at a rally in Malindi, Kilifi County. So just until there, I'd like to know what you make of the reaction from the Deputy President, William Ruto, Daniel Wesunga.
Thank you so much, Miriam. You know, they say that hit the chameleon hard enough until it shows its true colors. And we could actually see the frustration and the anger and the emotions that the Deputy President was bursting with yesterday. And that only points to one thing, that he's as guilty as charged. And therefore, that is why he's frustrated. That is why he's annoyed. And he's trying to vent it out on anybody that tries to speak about it. You know, every one of us, you know, it is human nature that if anybody talks anything bad, especially which actually hurts our ego, then we're gonna go for them in full speed. And that is what the DP is doing. You know, if it was a lie, then you know how people react. Even Miriam today, if you hear somebody talked about something about yourself, which you truly believe, deep down your heart, you believe it's actually an outright lie, there's some kind of calmness. There's some kind of, you know, you will just brush it off simply, you know. Even you won't spend so much time defending yourself. But at the moment anger sets in, the moment frustrations sets in, then this is a weakness that is actually, you actually acknowledge that it is in you, and you are actually part of it. And that is why you are actually fighting even the demons inside you. Know, you don't want the truth to come out wholesomely, and that is why you are actually being frustrated about it. And that is what we saw with the Deputy President. And for the first time, he confirmed that truly there was a scheme to actually impeach the president. So which means the president was all this time very correct in his assertions. And that goes ahead, Miriam, even to confirm the claim that the president has been making on many, many other things. You know, if William Ruto maybe would not have been pushed to the edge by this statement with the elders over the weekend, over the weekend by President Uhuru Kenyatta, perhaps we will never have known, he will never have admitted that actually there was a plot to impeach the president of the Republic of Kenya. And you realize that the president, apart from talking about the impeachment, the president has talked about the 3 billion shillings which he personally handed it over to him to go and develop the Kerio Valley region. And the president has also talked about informing the deputy president about the handshake between himself and Raila Odinga, of which the deputy president has never had a comment about it. Neither has he accepted or refuted the claims. But now these are coming in that light, Miriam. I believe there's so many things that the deputy president could be guilty of. And the president has always brought it out. But Kenyans who do not support maybe the president or the former prime minister will always come out gun blazing, defending the deputy president. So to me, I think it actually vindicates the president, and it makes William Ruto to be as guilty as charged on this particular matter. So that is the reality of the matter, Miriam. Okay. We can always, from the court of public opinion, we can always see the guilt. You know, they say that the guilty are always afraid. And that is what William Ruto is exuding from his public outbursts against the president and any other person who talks about his insolence against the head of state.
All right. And you started there, Daniel, by saying that if he wasn't guilty, supposedly guilty over these allegations, then maybe he will become and all that. But these allegations are grave. I don't think this is something he would, and also might go, might do a a big damage, you know, to his own reputation. Even maybe his votes also might suffer. So I don't know if I expected him to become. Regardless, but let's just continue with this story. To those spreading the propaganda, shame on you. Shame. You deserve nothing but shame. I want to ask our friends, please respect those of us that campaigned for Kenyatta and made him president. Please don't sink that low now that your project has been rejected. In the DP's eyes, the accusations against him should actually be placed on Mr. Odinga's doorstep. But Mr. Odinga was not present in that meeting at State House on Saturday now, Gladwell, or was he?
Miriam, what I understand, he was not there. And the biggest problem we have with our deputy president is anger and the bitterness he holds. And as I said yesterday, our president spoke and made a statement in front of our leaders from the Mount Kenya. Those were about 3,000 leaders. And Rafael Tuju once claimed that Ruto was also unfit for the government. We have also seen, as I said yesterday, the Magoha MP, Peter Kimari, he also spoke over. He also, it's like they know the deputy president more than us Kenyans, you know. And we can see that when they formed the government, Ruto attempted to strike a power deal with the ODM leader, and hence, when it failed, that is when our president and Raila formed the handshake. And my question is to the deputy president, what was wrong with the handshake? Why was he bitter about it? Is it because now the secrets will be known? Or more so, what was he trying to hide? So whatever today he said, or was it yesterday, it betrays anger of a leader, more so who holds a top position in our country.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Paul, are you back? Are you able to? Okay. So, of course, the DP said it was Mr. Odinga who saw himself in at Uhuru Park in January 2018 in an attempt to remove Mr. Kenyatta from office. Of course, that is a separate matter, from what, it is said the president said on Saturday. And so, he should be, why is Mr. Odinga being dragged into this? If that is what President Uhuru Kenyatta said on Saturday, Odinga was not even present in that meeting. Why can't he just speak straight on to the person of the president who say to have said these words?
I think DP did not have material facts to respond to the president. If at all I were him, I would have even avoided making any comment, because he was giving a character whereby the normal citizens, the way we normally behave, whereby somebody accuses of this, you shift the blame to the next person. So DP, if I were him, I would have not even made any statement about it. I would have continued with my campaign, telling people about Hustler, as he has been saying, and enlightening people about his Hustler movement. But in my own perspective, the issue that was in between the deputy president and the president was so explosive that I think the president managed to he managed so well that it did explode to the outside the government, to the extent that we are still enjoying peace. The government is running normally. So I would say thank you to the president for he was able to manage what was going on in between him and the deputy president. Because in other countries like South Sudan, such an issue came up, and what came out later was just war, and the war has not been solved until today. That's my take.
All right, thank you so much. And of course, that meeting I think happened on Friday, not on Saturday. And of course, Magoha MP Peter Kimari. I'm reading now from the Star newspaper, and I'm just trying to find out how the Star newspaper has captured this story. Magoha Member of Parliament Peter Kimari, who was part of the delegation, said Uhuru told them Ruto worked behind his back and approached ODM boss Raila Odinga so they could agree on an impeachment. Uhuru told the elders that Ruto wanted Raila arrested and prosecuted after he was sworn in as the people's president in January 2018. Ruto, Uhuru told the delegation was encouraging opposition protest in 2017. So according to even the story we were looking at yesterday, Daniel, apparently he was the one who was encouraging the opposition to protest, and then also encouraging the CS Matiang'i to go hard on opposition. So I don't know what kind of game is that, but apparently that is what, according to what Madhya Member of Parliament Peter Kimari is saying, that is what President Uhuru Kenyatta said while sharing about the details of what even transpired towards, that very famous handshake now. Daniel.
I totally agree with him, Miriam. And in politics, we say that the ends justify the means. And therefore, someone could actually be working against you, whereas you think that he's actually working for you. And therefore, I believe William Ruto was a Trojan horse in the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta, in that he was doing some actions actually to provoke the opposition and to keep them on the streets. And remember, when a vacuum occurs at the top seat of the country, that is the presidency, there is only one person who could be the beneficiary, and that is the deputy president. So if the opposition, it doesn't matter whether this plan was coming from William Ruto or the opposition, and, if the president was to be impeached, the only person who stood to benefit from this impeachment was number two, because the constitution says that if the position of the president falls vacant, either due to death or maybe impeachment or incapacitation, then the number two in the office, that is the deputy president, actually constitutionally commences and resumes the duties of being sworn in as the new president. So if the opposition was going to keep on fighting the government on the streets, and then finally Parliament perhaps will have come in and said that the country has become ungovernable, and therefore on that particular basis impeach the president, who would have benefited? Raila Odinga will not have ascended to become the president from being an opposition leader. Rather, William Ruto would have ascended to become the president, succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta. So at the end of it all, Miriam, you look at the beneficiary. Who would have been the beneficiary of the impeachment? Who would have been the beneficiary of this anarchy that was sending the country into the precedence of having an impeachment motion instituted against the president? It is William Ruto, who is the deputy president, who is number two in command, who just sits behind President Uhuru Kenyatta, so that if anything just tips President Uhuru Kenyatta off, William Ruto is right on the seat that President Uhuru Kenyatta is currently sitting on. So you have to look at it in that particular way. Of course, to a simple mind, you can't actually be able to fathom whatever maybe intrigues and cards that were being played at that particular high level. But that is what it is. When President Uhuru Kenyatta says that the deputy used to tell him, Kangum, and at the same time he's sending the interior CS to actually, intensify a purge towards the opposition, the opposition population, and provoke them into getting into the streets. It actually tells you of someone who was trying to double deal and playing uncannily, or maybe with a lot of treachery, playing his cards right, in that he's pulling and pushing both sides, so that at the end of the day, it is only him who is gonna benefit from this. It tells it is something actually similar from the fables that we used to be told when we are young people, where a rabbit or a hare actually approached an elephant and a hippopotamus, and told them, I can defeat you, each and every one of them. I can defeat you in a game of pulling the rope, And at the end of the day, he actually deceived both animals, into pulling against one another, whereas they were actually pulling, whereas they thought that they were pulling against the rabbit. It ended up that they were actually pulling against one another, and each one of them went home thinking that this particular small creature could actually be strong as I am, whereas it was just simple mind games and treachery that was at play. So this is the same kind of games that William Ruto was playing, trying to provoke the opposition, whereas he tries to set up President Uhuru Kenyatta for impeachment. It's akin to fattening the bull for a slaughter, and that is where President Uhuru Kenyatta was headed to. Because let me tell you, Miriam, if the resist movement of the NASA coalition was to persist in this country for another 4-6 months, then the parliament will actually have called for a special sitting where they would have passed a vote of no confidence with the president, because the government, the country was becoming ungovernable. The opposition was at that time actually demonstrating 3 days in a week. And if they will have stepped it up for even 4 days or 5 days in a week, then that will be the end game. And let me tell you, William Ruto had strategically mobilized MPs, more than 150 MPs on his side, ready for the job. And let me tell you, if NASA coalition would have sent the motion to impeach the president into parliament with the numbers the opposition had, they already had over 100 and plus, MPs. And William Ruto had already sent his MPs in retreat, sometimes in November 26th, to discuss about the same impeachment. It would have been a shock on this particular country, because these people who are expected perhaps to protect the president against the opposition's impeachment would be the same people on that day who would have voted against the president to have the president impeached. And it would have been a resounding majority impeaching the president on that particular day. Forget about the few MPs who started after the handshake, running back to the president to work with the president in completing his legacy. Majority of them had been taken away by William Ruto, which means by that time, actually, he had more than 80% of the MPs from Mount Kenya, Rift Valley, and all other seats that Jubilee was able to win in the House of Parliament and in the Senate. And therefore, that was a very, very major risk. So Raila Odinga actually should not come into the picture. And if he has to come into the picture, then he should come in as a superhero who actually saved the life and the neck of the president. Because Raila Odinga had a choice, either to work with the deputy president and impeach the president by 8 a.m. in the morning when the motion was to be tabled, or maybe work with the president and be able to safeguard his term and assist him to complete his legacy and be able to complete the Big Four agenda, of which he chose the latter over the former. And therefore, Raila Odinga is as clean as cotton in this particular melee, and the William Ruto is the only person to blame. Remember, he had the scheme in both ways. He was setting up the president, whereas he's talking to Raila Odinga. He's provoking the opposition supporters. At the same time, he also wanted to go and approach Raila Odinga. Actually, he approached Raila Odinga to go and have an impeachment motion tabled against the president of the Republic of Kenya. So this was a man who was determined to impeach the president regardless of any other factor that comes up. We shall not talk about whatever Livondo was talking about. I believe that was plan B, but that tells you the evil plan that this man had. And therefore, I believe, Miriam, he has the right to get frustrated and to get, angry about people who are talking about this matter. It is part of us, Miriam. Today, if I do something embarrassing, I wouldn't want people to keep on talking about it, because whenever they continue talking about it, it brings the embarrassment back. If you ever did something embarrassing during your childhood, if someone was to bring it up right now, Miriam, I guarantee you, at some point, you might even feel like going for that particular person and fighting with them. That is the part, that belongs with us. Whenever you do a bad thing, it belongs with you. It sticks with you. It's part of human nature. So we understand William Ruto. Let him get frustrated, but at the end of the day, truth has to be brought out. And even the Holy Writ says that say the truth and it shall set you free. And that is what President Uhuru Kenyatta is doing. So if he wishes, he can burst, he can get angry, he can throw tantrums, but that is the fact of the matter that of whatever happened, Miriam. I submit.
All right, thank you so much. And of course, these allegations I crave, are we likely to see perhaps the person of the deputy president maybe press charges or go sue or something, or legal action taken? Because these are not, it's not something very, very light to this. Paul, are we likely to see deputy president outside of making those sentiments in the political arena taking action?
Okay.
Did you
Come again.
Okay, I'm saying the allegations that, please, can we all be present? The allegations that the deputy were made, President Kenyatta said have made, I think these are grave allegations. So are we likely to see the deputy president outside of the pronouncements he's making on these political arenas? Is he likely to take some legal action against maybe the person of the president? I don't know.
I think even if he attempts to do that, he may not go too far. It might be just a political side shows, but he won't go very far with it because the deputy president so far is bargaining chip for now is popularity. Now he has been using the Central Kenya MPs, elected members of parliament and county assemblies, to undermine the president, to abuse him or embarrass him in the public. So far, I think there's a letter going around online from last week, I think, written by Irungu Kangata, informing the deputy president.
I don't know if that was true. I don't know if that was true or it was just some Photoshop. I'm not sure if that was confirmed to be true. I'm not very sure if that is true.
Yes, you are right, but I'm just saying that it's within the circles of online. Mm-hmm. So far, the deputy president, even if he takes legal action, it won't make any impact so much on his side. The only thing that maybe we would be looking for sympathy that might be there for his support, for those who support him. So the legal action you may think of taking would give much weight as he may, or as he may, somebody may think or he may want. So the only thing we should do is just simply concentrate on his inaitwa Hustler Nation.
His campaigns.
Just should concentrate on that, the Hustler Nation campaign.
Okay.
Such that he can continue harvesting more from other sides.
Okay, thank you so much. So perhaps lodging a legal battle right now might be ill-timed, and maybe he does not want that Pandora box to continue spewing, I suppose. But this is a story we shall look out to see how it continues to pan out. And now still on page 2 of the Star newspaper, countrywide listing of boda riders to start today. A countrywide registration of 2.5 million boda riders will start today. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i said principal secretaries will preside over the exercise. At Huduma centers, they will issue smart driving licenses to qualify riders to promote road safety and stamp out rampant indiscipline. The exercise will be conducted within 60 working days from March 28th to June 24th, 2022. A registered boda rider will be issued with a smart driving license within the period, he said. An incentive, the National Health Insurance Fund will provide 12-month health cover for 200,000 riders. To register, a rider must have the original ID card, a copy of KRA PIN, and an active registered phone number. A notification will be sent to the registered phone number upon processing of the registration information. National Transport and Safety Authority Communications Board Anthony Nyongesa urged riders to cooperate and take advantage of the waiver. The president ordered a waiver of 5,800 Kenyan shillings registration fee. So we've seen steps are being taken in line with the outcry and the impunity we've been seeing from these from the boda sector, and now the government has stepped in and is trying to streamline and bring some order. These are I think a good start. Gladwell.
Yes, Miriam, I think it's a good start, and I hope that they will look into it deeply because because our boda riders, also in some parts of our region, they're so brutal, and also in some of the big cities, they are becoming so brutal and so chaotic. Also, we can see that, for example, the Karura case and many other cases. So I think what the government has done, I think it's a good step, and I hope they follow it to the latter, because our government is also got a crazy government whereby they are good in implementing something, but they don't complete it. So I hope complete it to the latter. That's me.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. That is my hope too. And Daniel, we've seen this directive that President Uhuru Kenyatta gave in the wake of that ugly incident we saw happening that happened along, Forest Road. But unfortunately, there's been so much politics in the manner in which some politicians choose to talk about, this measure that President Uhuru Kenyatta took, forgetting what even necessitated this move and how many Kenyans have been suffering from the impunity that we've seen in this boda industry. But these steps that the government is taking, do you think they will bring some order in the boda sector in the long run?
Thank you so much, Miriam. And of course, the Chinese say that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And of course, indeed, this is the one step that this journey of 1,000 miles that is ahead of us, which is going to see our boda industry being streamlined and everything being brought back to order. You realize that when we remove the duty on the motorbikes, the government never anticipated that we're going to have such a high spike in the number of operators, even in our cities, leave alone in the villages. And therefore, I believe when the government of the day, that is the Mwai Kibaki government, was maybe contemplating towards maybe removing the duty of motorbikes and making them affordable to to the medium income earners of this country, they would have maybe anticipated the mess and the impact that it would have brought on our roads, and therefore needed some maybe legislation to be able to curb maybe that the traffic offences and whichever maybe impact that might have come with the usage of these motorbikes. But Miriam, being that it was a new industry coming into the market, perhaps they never anticipated that these criminal maybe tendencies were also gonna follow on the motorbike, maybe the boda industry, because previously, before we had the motorbike in the boda industry, we had the bicycles, people riding and carrying their passengers on the bike, and we never had people having their phones snatched, and we never had even criminal gangs using motorbikes as their getaway vehicles, and all that kind of things that we are seeing today. So perhaps that will have been a mistake on their side, but also a mistake which maybe many wouldn't have foreseen. But the step that has been taken by the Ministry of Interior is actually a step to redeem that particular kind of maybe negligence that was there from the very go. So I believe as we start with the smaller numbers of 200,000 riders being registered and getting licenses, and remember also these riders are getting a 1 year cover, full cover for NHIF, which will be free for the first year, and then for the subsequent years they're gonna be paying for it. So this like hitting two birds using one stone, and therefore it's a good thing. I believe it will actually entice them, because in the 60 days they'll actually be have to register, and that will make sure that all rogue riders get out of the road. We have been seeing high school students, young boys riding these motorbikes dangerously on our roads, and that will make it even harder for them to appear on the roads after the registration is over, because for you to be able to register and be able to get a license and the NHIF cover, perhaps you have to meet a certain maybe threshold in terms of your constitutional requirement, the age limit and all that. Also, it's going to make sure that only perhaps the owner of the motorbike, whoever possesses a motorbike, is the one who is eligible to go and register. And therefore, if you are found somewhere and they maybe from the government's data, just the same way the traffic cops are able to check, your driver's license and all that, in the government's data, it doesn't show that you own a certain motorbike, then it's going to be a problem for you. You have to explain why you are having this particular motorbike, and you are not a registered member and you do not have even the license. So it will be very, very difficult for someone to go get a motorbike somewhere and go use it to commit a crime and run away with it, because whoever lends out their motorbikes or whoever hires out their motorbikes will have to be very, very strict with it, knowing that if this motorbike was to be used to commit a crime, then the government is just going to check into their database and come for you. The same way we have today with cars. You cannot just maybe give out your car without knowing where it's going to, which duties, or maybe where it's going to, because it might go and it gets used in a crime where you will be implicated and spend so many time, a lot of time in courts, and maybe even pay a very huge fine for it. So that is the same thing that is going to happen with these registrations. And for a long time, we've been seeing these crimes in the border and the motorbike, most of the motorbike industry, simply because there was no accountability. They could be involved in a road accident, but because the government does not have data of who is maybe riding a certain motorbike or who the owner is, they just run away. After all, there's no way you can be able to track them. But this time around, after they register, at least they can know there's a motorbike which caused a road accident in a certain road, and the rider ran away. And this motorbike, from the number plate we've been able to capture, it belongs to so and so who lives in a certain place, and we can go and get him or her to get accountable for this particular crime or offense that they committed. The same way with the people who have been stealing from innocent Kenyans on the streets using motorbikes. All you have to do, perhaps while you are stolen from, or maybe you witness an incident, is just to note down the number plate, and then they're gonna feed it into the NTSA system, and we shall be able to get the name of the individual and the ID number and where they reside, and the government will be able to go for them. Mm-hmm. So it brings some kind of accountability, and that accountability is what will instill orderliness in our border industry. And therefore, Miriam, starting from that point, I believe everything will be able to cave in, and we'll have all those border riders and people who are going to buy those bikes into the future coming and registering them with government, so that we have a clear database and people cannot be able to commit a crime. Maybe just to mention, there's a day just recently I was reading about certain individuals in the US who committed some financial crimes, and they were on the run across the states of the US. But later on, they were arrested. What led to their arrest? They actually mistakenly ordered for a pizza using their credit card. And just by feeding in the credit card into Domino's point of sale terminal, actually the police in New York were alerted that a certain credit card belonging to one of the fugitive has been used at point X in a certain state. And that is how they were able to connect with the police in such a particular in the other state, and the criminals were able to be apprehended immediately in their hotel room. And that is the same thing that could happen if we have a very, very seamless system of these border riders and owners in our government database. In that, if they commit a crime, it doesn't matter where you are, but we have your data. We can actually be able to link this motorcycle or motorbike to you. In that, if it commits a crime or an offense on the road, then we shall come for you, and you will be able to produce the people who are using that particular motorbike at that particular time, be it yourself or maybe another third party. We shall be able to get at the bottom of it. And I believe that is what Kenyans need, because this outcry did not come from the president. Rather, it came from Kenyans across board who felt that enough was enough, and this industry needed a regulation, Miriam. I submit.
Very well, thank you so much. And you've seen the government trying to make this registration exercise a bit attractive to these border operators by waiving, the 5,800 registration fee. And now on top of that, the National Health Insurance Fund will be provided with a 12-month health cover for the first 200,000 border operators who will go to register. Will this be attractive enough to have them come in their numbers, Gladwell?
Sorry, come again, Miriam.
I'm saying on top of the the fee, the registration fee of 5,800 being waived, because I'm sure this has been a stumbling block for a lot of them to go register. So the government has waived that fee. But on top of that, they're also getting an incentive of for the National Health Insurance Fund, which will be provided for for 12 months, and this is being given for the first 200,000 riders. Will this be attractive enough to have them come as many as they can and get registered?
Well, I think it can, and but you know the problem with the Buddha guys, as I said, they are mature, yes, but in case of an incident that happens, that is when you get to know the true colors. So I think them having a health insurance for the next month, for the next 12 months, I think it will attract more to register, and that is what we need in our Kenya. We need to have registered with the border so that the work condition can be well off. They need a better workflow, and also I've also seen they also need a KRA pin. And I think if the government is doing, I think the government I think the government is working on that, and I hope the border guys will comply to the rules.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Paul. You are not there, but I see you've rejoined us again. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we're looking at the issue of border, and the registration and national-wide starts today for the next 2 months. They will, for the next 60, days, the registration will commence, and we've seen the incentive that government has given for the first 200,000 riders, a 12-month cover of the NHIF, and also, the waiver of the 5,800 registration fee. The government will pay that for them. So will this attract more riders to come and be registered so that in an effort to streamline this industry, this might become a reality indeed?
Yeah, I think the government was even too late to begin the exercise. Mm-hmm. This border industry, it has employed a great number of Kenyans. But one particular thing that it was not regulated, just like the matatu in the years. The unregulated industry crime normally thrive. So when they are made to comply with the regulations, it will streamline the way they operate. Obedience to the law will be part of the day-to-day activity. The most important thing is being compliant with the law. And also, since this registration and putting them in the grid for NHF and also savings will allow them to be responsible for what they are earning. I think that one will make them improve their lives. Mm-hmm. So it's a good move, but though it started very late.
All right, but better late than never, right? They said that.
Exactly.
All right, I think it's about time. Now let's turn our attention now to another story on page 8 of the Star newspaper. The Health Ministry is concerned about the high number of Kenyans who have defaulted on the COVID-19 vaccines booster shots. Data from the ministry shows that out of the more than 900,000 who are eligible for their booster shots, only 275,525 turned up by Friday. Kenya opened the administration of the COVID-19 vaccine boosters in January following advice from the Kenya National Immunization Technical Advisory Group. This is after emerging scientific evidence recommended that an additional dose of a vaccine be given after the protection provided by the original shots started on naturally decreased over time. A booster tricks the immune system into thinking that it is again seeing a pathogen, so antibody-producing cells and other immune cells are recalled into gear. This has been attributed to complacency among Kenyans following reduction in the positivity rate and the number of COVID-19 admissions. And now the Ministry of Health is worried that over 600,000 that have defaulted in COVID booster shots, but also if Kenyans don't take these, vaccines, a lot of them might just go bad. So why is it you think that Kenyans are not going for their booster shots, and others have not even gone to have their first shots at all? Daniel Wesonga, what do you think is still the problem with Kenyans? What excuse do we have at this point?
Miriam, I think Kenyans are just maybe given to maybe complaining and not having maybe the patriotism maybe other people in other countries that have. And you realize that even when the COVID-19 was actually hitting us hard, people are actually complaining about the government not doing this and that, not knowing that perhaps these were the same conditions even in the first world. If you went to Britain, those were the conditions. If you went to America, if you went to China, people were talking about economic meltdown and the high cost of living and all that. So to me, I think we need to understand as a people a few things about the global economies and how the trickle-down effect of it actually affects the smaller economies in the third world countries. So sometimes I actually see people complaining how the government has increased the prices of oil, in the at the pump level, and you really wonder, But I remember sometimes in 2018, the price of oil per barrel was at around 56 US dollars per barrel. And today, if you compare the same price per barrel, is actually heading to $105 per barrel. And that is in the first world countries, the countries that produce oil, the OPEC countries. So you can imagine how much the price would have increased here in Kenya, because in Kenya here, you only understand that the price has only increased maybe by, let's say, not more than double. But you realize that the price globally of oil has increased more than double. So they have to understand how the trickle-down effect actually happens. Today, like for example, also today, when you look at the global economies, because of the war in Russia and Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, people are actually moving their investments from other currencies, from other assets, putting them into the form of dollar, because the dollar is the global reserve currency and it has some kind of safety owing to the long-standing political stability of the US and the superpower that it has been over the years. Therefore, that makes the dollar to be automatically in demand. What implication does that have on the Kenyan shillings? It means that with the dollar going up in demand, actually the price of the dollar will go up automatically, not only here in Kenya, but across the globe. So which means the shilling will be trading lower, unfavorably over the dollar. It might be maybe even when you go for an exchange, maybe when you check at the extent, you realize that a couple more shillings, you need more shillings, to purchase a single dollar. So it could be trading let's say even 120 over shillings over a dollar. And that is not that does not mean that the economy of Kenya is doing badly. It is only that we are in a free market economy globally, a capitalistic kind of economy, where something that happens in the US or maybe any other part of the globe, it actually trickles down to us. But Kenyans will always complain and try to rope in the government of the day and crucify the head of state on those particular matters and blame them for anything and everything. For example, like now, Miriam, if today the price of wheat flour goes up, it is not because the government of Kenya is failing in a certain way, but it is because we are more dependent on wheat coming from Russia and Ukraine. That is why we have a shortage today because of the war, and that is why we are all crying that perhaps the prices have gone up. The oil prices have not even gone up here in Kenya alone. I've seen people from South Sudan, people from South Africa doing challenges with how maybe oil has become a quintessential, maybe a commodity in their kitchens. And it's all over. It's all over, Miriam. Wheat farming, we will be doing wheat farming here in Kenya. But however, the Kenyan farmer, again, has transfixed their minds on maize farming and nothing else. You'll be really, really surprised that even in regions where maize farming is not quite doing well, people have been accustomed to believe that maize farming is the only way forward. Just the same way, back in the day in the region where I come from, in the wider Nyanza and Western region, people were accustomed that sugarcane farming was the only way they could earn a living, not knowing that we could actually import sugar from Brazil at a lower cost than whichever we could produce here in Kenya. So why can't we import whichever thing we can import and be able to produce whatever we can be able to produce? For example, if we can import maize from Mexico at a lower price, then let us do so. If we can be able to grow wheat in Trans Nzoia, in Uasin Gishu, in the vast part of the Rift Valley, at a lower cost than we can get it from Russia or Ukraine, then let us grow it and do away with maize farming. So that is the kind of a scenario that we are having. The government could be willing to assist us in a particular way, but we as the Kenyan people, as farmers, and the population in general, we also have our own problems to carry when it comes to our economic status and all that. And it is not quite wise to always blame the government of the day, because some of these problems, we can only understand them if you have a grasp of how the global economics work and the dynamics thereabout that actually influence these economies. So owing to all those particular reasons, Miriam, I really, really call on Kenyans to be considerate and look at whatever is happening across the globe, not only here in Kenya, but even in Uganda and many other African countries. The cost of living has generally gone up, and that is because of, one, the global pandemic, two, the crisis in Ukraine and Russia, and that is what is at play at this particular moment. So, Miriam, I think sometimes we complain fairly, but most of the time we complain unfairly as a people.
And in this case, I think the vaccine is there. When it was not enough, people are complaining, and now it's there. And I see the government, especially around here in Nairobi, they've made a point of making even the vaccination accessible. I see some vaccination points being put at, bus stations and all that, and still Kenyans don't want to go and have their booster shots, and others have not even had their first vaccine yet. And now there's a danger of wasting some of this expiring before Kenyans are able to be vaccinated. Gladwell, what do you think is the reason to this?
To be honest, Kenyans, it's true, they're not showing up with the injection, and most have a terrible, with the injections, most got terrible side effects. For example, some are causing numbness, some headaches, some nausea, and what Kenyans are not understanding that the injection is reacting differently to different people. Kenyans also not sure which is the best jab to take. Is it the AstraZeneca or the Johnson & Johnson? And also, they also have the fear of the same experience, maybe out of the first injection. Personally, when I was first injected the AstraZeneca, I had the fear to go for the second jab because the first injection didn't react well with me. But at the same time, we should be responsible and own up. As Kenyans, our economy currently is messy, and we wouldn't wish to go back to the lockdown or to the mess that was once there when the COVID was extremely high. So we need to work on our economy currently, and I would urge all the Kenyans, kindly let us go and take the jab. I submit.
All right, I'm sorry for that. So your first jab, you had some reactions, some side effects to that. So, but were you able to go for your second jab?
Yes, I had to overcome it, though it was terrible. It was terrible.
Okay, all right. Sorry to hear that. We had it here, and all of us seemed okay. But as you say, it reacts to different people differently. But still, it's good, and Kenyans are encouraged. I think the benefits outweigh any other thing, unless in very fatal incidences that have not even been reported in the recent past. Paul Onyango, why do you think Kenyans are reluctant to go have their booster shots, one, and also others have not cared to go for their first vaccination at all?
Yes, to some extent, there are people who don't have enough civic education about the importance of getting the jab. Because there are some people who came there earlier with the wrong information about the side effects of the jab. So because there was not enough civic education about the jabs, some people became reluctant. Even around me, there are people, even if you ask them about, they say, "Watch I kai. If I die, I will die." Even where we are in Nairobi, there are people who don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. Deliberately or for other reasons. But it's a wrong move. I think the government should still do more civic education, maybe create airtime in some of the most viewed stations or programs. Even the bit they've done, even the bit they have been sending, even few people have been given knowledge they can vaccinate people within the estates, mitaani, people can get the jabs. There are areas that have not been reached, especially the rural areas. Very few people have received the jab. So it is still for the government to come up with more programs to reach more people, other than in the urban centers where the vaccine is readily available to many people. That's my take.
All right, thank you so much. And yes, the rural areas, the vaccination centers are not very accessible because you have to walk or take a bus or whatever to go to far off, hospital or the nearest clinic, which may not be very near. But also the perception that people have there is really ridiculous. Like my mom, she has refused to have her jab. She has her own reasons, and trying to convince her, she just, I don't know. It's difficult, and it's annoying at the same time. You're trying to tell her it's for your own good. She does not understand that. She's like, the blood of Jesus. I'm thinking you need this vaccination. So I don't know how to help her. But when you hear her reasons, and then you talk to a couple of others in the same village, they all think in a very interesting manner. So I think that also is a problem. Maybe there's no, a lot of information or awareness that has been created. But I think at this point, the government has really done its best in terms of passing out the information on the importance of this vaccine. So I think for others, they choose to believe however they want to believe, and you not convince them, and others you can convince them. Like I know a friend of mine who could not, but eventually she decided that she went and got her jab. So I guess they're just people like that, and sometimes we can't do anything about it, but to hopefully, hope that they will change their mind. So there's a story I just seen here, a bit of politics. On page 13, Raila running mate post not reserved for Mount Kenya, says KANU. KANU chairman Gideon Moi is spoiling for a fight with Mount Kenya leaders in the battle for the running mate position in the Azimio la Umoja movement. Allies of the Baringo senator yesterday said Central must prove its worth to the coalition's flag bearer Raila Odinga, saying the position is not theirs for the taking. The Independence Party has urged Mount Kenya leaders to work hard for their position and stop thinking that it is reserved for them. KANU Secretary General Nick Salat said both President Uhuru Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga should not be pressured over the position. He alleged that the President Kenyatta's backyard is not up to the task. Any number we get to Azimio from Central will just be a bonus. Let's be realistic and stop stressing the President. All we need from Central is 40%, said Mr. Salat. The Raila factor in this country cannot be disputed, and those calling him a project know that he is self-made politician. But let's just go back to where he started, where he's saying Central Kenya must prove its worth. I think we all know how Central Kenya is worth as far as their vote is concerned. So is Mr. Salat, right in making these assertions or calling for Mount Kenya to prove their worth as far as the second in command in the Azimio team is concerned, Daniel? And I know this is your party.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miriam. And of course, the feeling is mutual, and I believe across the country, it is high time now we thought of other communities also leading, and that was even the statement that the president gave some time back, and he has been able to pronounce himself severally on that particular matter. You realize that since independence, only two communities have been able to rule this particular country, and these are the Kalenjins and the Kikuyus. We cannot have that happen in a country where we have more than 43 tribes. And therefore, I believe this time round, we should have the leadership of this country go to a different community in terms of the president. And we have the deputy president also going to a different community just for the purpose of equality. Because you realize that if this was to continue, that the leadership of this country only rotates between Mount Kenya and the Rift Valley region, then we're going to have a problem into the future. We're going to have a scenario like what we witnessed in Ethiopia, where the Tigrayans, who are the minority, were ruling over the majority of Oromos and other communities for over decades without ever passing the baton of leadership to the other communities to also rule. And the eventual part of it is that a civil war actually broke out from that kind of a pressure that had been ongoing for over years. People might maybe look as if they don't have a problem with it, but deep down, Miriam, it's a very, very serious problem. Look at whatever happened in Rwanda in 1994 and even in Burundi, the civil wars. It is because the Tutsi minorities had been ruling over these people for decades, even before the during pre-colonial periods. And people saw it not to be a much problem until now. These things actually came, the pressures came boiling up. And then now people started actually thinking and talking that, saying that you guys perhaps have been ruling us for quite too long, and you are the minority, and you've been taking the rest of us for granted. You think that we cannot also rule this particular country. And that is how civil wars begin. So we have to look at it. We have to make sure that we have a balance in how this country is governed. We cannot have only two communities governing a country of 45 for more than 43 tribes for all those years since independence, for more than 50 years since independence. So I believe this time is the time where we are going to have the leadership of this country also going to another region. And this is the same message we should tell William Ruto, that he should sit aside and allow the leadership of this country to go to another region. The same thing with Mount Kenya region. I'm sorry, maybe to pass this message to them, that this time round, we are not very keen to have a deputy president coming from the Mount Kenya region. Let other regions also have a deputy president. Let Ukambani, of course, Ukambani has had Kalonzo Musyoka for 5 years, but you realize that Central region has had more than 2 or 3 deputy presidents during the Moi era. And therefore, that is enough for them. They have had actually 3 presidents. That is enough for them. Rift Valley has had a president for 24 years. That is enough for them. They have had a deputy president for 10 years. That is enough for them. Let us also look at Nyanza. Let us also look at Western Kenya. Let us also look at Turkana. Let us also look at the coast and be able to rotate this particular seat so that at the end of the day, the seat of presidency do not become a divisive topic in our discussion like it has always been since independence, but it becomes an item of unity for our country. Because if it is rotational, then it means the country is united. Even if a president is sitting in power whose community only composes of maybe, let's say, even 2% of our society, we know pretty well that it is their time to govern, and therefore we should not have a problem with it. Kenyans will actually unite overwhelmingly and say that this time it is the Borana to actually govern this country, and therefore that is the reason why we are uniting and voting for a Borana president to rule this particular country. And I think that is something new that the president has brought on board, and it is going to be part of his legacy. I believe if Raila wins the forthcoming election, President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to be the first president to break the jinx of the presidency, which has always pitted Kenyans against one another, which has always been rotated between 2 communities. And therefore, he's opening up the country for a much bigger and wider dialogue of having leadership rotate amongst all the communities of this particular republic. I believe after Raila Odinga serves as the president for 5 years, he'll be able to pass over the baton to another community. And it will go that way until, Miriam, we are able to have each and every community of this country lead at the level of the presidency. Because remember, the presidency is not a preserve of only 2 communities. And that is what we should be talking about. I know it is a very, very maybe sensitive topic to talk about, but we need a dialogue. 50 years after independence, we have not had the presidency moving outside 2 regions, and it's a bigger problem. Sooner or later, if we continue in that particular direction, we might go the Ethiopia way, we might go the Rwanda way, we might go the DRC way, and many other African countries which have been having such an injustice happening, but no one talks about it. Even today in Nigeria, we are having a similar problem because for so many years, leadership was in a certain region of the country, and maybe a particular region felt that we are being discriminated against, and therefore they had to go and take leadership forcibly And whatever is happening today is the trickle-down effect of where a few communities actually were the custodian of leadership without relinquishing it to other communities to feel and become part and parcel of the wider leadership of the nation. So I think this is a dialogue that we should be able to have. And it's very, very important that in the forthcoming election, we say that Rift Valley and Mount Kenya region, you've had your place at the seat of power, and therefore this time round going forward, let us also have these the presidency, the seat of presidency, actually going to other regions, so that they are also able to enjoy and be able to govern this particular country. And after that is done, we shall move it to another different, maybe community or maybe region, to also have their time at the seat of the presidency. Because presidencies, presidents and the deputy presidents are not only born in certain regions and not the others, Miriam. We have to get that clear, and I believe the president is very much open to that, and that is why he started that particular conversation, and that also formed a very, very big part of the BBI conversation. I believe it can be done, and it will be done for the benefit and the posterity of this particular country, Miriam. I submit.
All right, thank you so much. And of course, one of our viewers here, Joseph Otto Manasseh, is not agreeing with that rotational leadership between different Kenyan communities. He's saying that is also a tribal mindset. I don't know why. Joseph Otto, good morning. Anyway, Apollo Nyango, what Nick Salat is now saying, that Central Kenya must prove that they're worth this second position. Does Central Kenya has anything to prove as far as the numbers are concerned and what they're bringing to the table, that they do indeed deserve this second place?
So I concur with Mr. Wesonga on his sentiments, but for whatever reason he has been, for whatever the case may be, if you look at the Southern Sahara, especially Southern Sahara, where we can talk about democracy or change of power, change of guard, South Africa, ANC has been doing it so well. Most African governments need to copy from that. But when we look at back when Kibaki was elected in office 2002.
So before we go on to you, I think the South African aspect you brought in, perhaps you'd want to elaborate further, like what part of the electoral process, because we know theirs is different. Theirs is what do you call it, proportional representation as compared to what we have here. So what part of the elections do you think perhaps we could emulate, or we could go and get a study and see how we can have it here in the Constitution? Which part of the election process would you like for us to?
Okay.
Yeah.
If you remember when Thabo Mbeki was removed from office even before he completed his term, he was recalled by the party. And then he resigned from the seat. This also later came back to Mr. Jacob Zuma, who was also removed by the party. He relinquished his seat, somebody took over. So if we could be seeing problems with a certain leader, then the political party in power see the sense that instead of tarnishing the name of the party, you better resign or we move out of office. Another person takes over. It is a good move for other African countries to emulate. So that's where my point comes in. So I was just echoing the Wesonga's sentiments can only work where everything is perfect. But for our case, one time it might be good. Another time when it comes things, we are going down where we came from. So where we were at 202, we thought that we had moved a very big stride when Kibaki came into office. What happened to 007? We went back to where we didn't even think of it there. So now we are building from what happened 2007, 2008. So when Nick Salas, they are saying so, they also need to think that is it the electorate or is it the party that should ensure that the smooth transition, the smooth running of the government? That's my take.
Okay, thank you so much. Glad we'll end the conversation for us. What Nick Salat is saying.
I'll start by saying that leadership is not hereditary, neither is it a talent. It's God given. At a point, I also agree with Daniel Wesonga, but on a lighter note, the way you said we need leaders from other regions, in the same way, we also need change and give chance to also women. And we have to do away with the mentality of only men can be a president or the deputy president in our Republic of Kenya. We need also gender balance in the Kenyan leadership. And as for a leader, you are the key role in in the country, and all eyes on you. Whatever you do portrays who you are and portrays the face of the nation. So I also think, and I would also say that we also need a gender balance. Why don't you also give a chance to our women to be a deputy president and see how it can? As for the Central Kenya, we have nothing to prove. We've already proved ourselves, and that's why in some of the Central Kenya, in the higher percentage, we are doing well. I submit.
Doing well in terms of what? As compared to where?
Miriam, to be honest, if you can see some central parts of Kenya, the infrastructure is better off compared to some regions in the Rift Valley. We can see, for example, the companies we've got and the factories, most are from Central Kenya, and most also the leadership. Most people come from Central Kenya.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how does that qualify Nick Salat's statement? Because you're saying Central Kenya has to prove itself. If at all it can, it deserves the second place in Azimio.
Come again, Miriam.
All right. I think your connection has a bit of a problem. But Nick Salat was saying Central Kenya Mount Kenya region must now prove themselves. And they should not just wait to be given the second slot in Azimio as the deputy president. They have to prove that indeed they deserve this.
Miriam, I think he should tell us and be open. How does he want us to prove ourselves? Because personally, as Central Kenya, Central region, we have already proved ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why we got, I think, 3 presidents coming from the Central region.
Okay. All right. I think we will leave that conversation right there. CS Magoha, the CS for Education, is set to release the KCPE results. And right now, I saw some images, him coming from State House. I think he met President Uhuru Kenyatta and briefed him. So I don't know, it was supposed to happen at 11. I see it's 11:30. So I don't know if already, but CS Magoha is set to release the KCPE results for this year. So we're just waiting to see how the pupils would have performed. We know this year's and last year's candidates are doing the exams in very unusual circumstances. I know that because my son did his last year, and it was quite challenging, but they did well nevertheless. So even for the ones that are expecting their results, I think we wish them all the best. And so maybe that is a conversation after the results are out. We'll be having maybe later, maybe tomorrow after the results are out, and see how our children have done. Thank you so much, Gladwell Kiragu. Thank you, Daniel Wesonga. Thank you, Paul Onyango. It was a pleasure to have you all on the show. My name is Miriam Ogutu. This has been the extended version of Good Morning Africa. Thank you so much for watching, and good morning.